Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Clallam EDC Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We are really pleased to have friends from Citizen Air join us today. We have several of their owners, employees here with us, and so I'm going to kick this off in just a moment. But before I do, a few housekeeping items. If you'll keep yourself on mute, please, so we don't pick up any background noise. And we like this to be interactive. If you have a question, you can either raise your hand and I'll have you ask your question, or alternatively, you can put your question in the chat and then I will ask it for you. So with that, I'd like to first introduce Kelly Kidwell. He's the founder and CEO of Citizen Air. It's a Clallam County aviation company based at Fairchild Airport and built, which is, of course, the Port Angeles Airport, and built on the belief that integrity and teamwork matter as much as horsepower. With a background in financial leadership and a lifelong passion for aviation, Kelly launched Citizen Air to make private flying more accessible, transparent, and community-driven. Also, we have today Brian Hammer, president of Citizen Air, who oversees the day-to-day operations. Brian has over 30 years of aviation maintenance, operations, and consulting experience and dealing with transactions in aviation. Together, they're shaping a company culture driven by deeds, doing the right thing, embracing teamwork, elevating community, and driving improvement. So with that, Kelly and Brian, I'll let you take it away. Thank you. And I'll get the slides up for you.
All right. Thanks, Colleen. And thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. And it looks like we've got about 33 people on here so far. So welcome. And I'll try to zip through the slides this morning, mostly so we can get to Q&A, because then I can sort of pinpoint answers to the questions. We have a pretty good number of them, so I'll just get right into it. And Brian, feel free to jump in. We also have Keisha and Henny. Henny's our chief pilot, and I see that he was here. And Keisha, she runs all of us, kind of tells us what to do every day. We try very hard to keep up with her. She's not easy to keep up with. But thanks for having us today, Colleen. All right, so Citizen Air, I'm going to just say something about this particular name. Citizen Air is a realization that, first off, this has got to be a durable solution that stays here with us once we get it built. We don't want it to move again because somebody changes strategy, or there's no private equity in this group, so we don't have anybody pulling the strings above us. This is just locally owned and going to be focused on building a durable solution, one that once we get it stood up, it has the capacity to continue. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. This is just a quick hello from my wife and I. She and I moved up here because this is really where we used to come when we wanted to have fun with the family. We love to hike and explore, and that's our dog in the back seat of our Cirrus with her there. He does wear his muffs very dependably when he's flying. It's really good. So my wife Christy and I have been married just over 3 decades and have 4 children. One of them lives here with his wife and 3 grandchildren from them and 2 other grandchildren. So we're up to 5 now, and really loving it here. Came here because after COVID, we decided why not live where we like to play? So this is it for us, and we really want to try to make a difference. So next slide. And you already heard about Mr. Hammer. I feel really lucky to have him. One of the regional aviation leaders in this area, Travis Holland out of Bellingham, made a strong recommendation that if we could get him, we should try. And comes from the Air Force, has a long history in aviation, as you heard, and has worked with the biggest of fractional companies that there are in this country. So we've hired him to run the day-to-day, and he is proving well up to the task. He and Keisha together are definitely running a high pace or fast-paced growth focus, but at the same time paying attention to all the details, which has just been super helpful. So glad to have you, Brian, on the team. So next.
Come on. It's not wanting to go. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, back one. Think you skipped one? No? How funny. I
I
wonder what
am,
happened.
there we go. There it is.
Okay, great. So as many of you know, we purchased Wright Brothers from Jeff Well. Jeff has been the steward of this operation. Well, he was working there as a pilot before he bought it, and so really he spent the last 4 decades nurturing and protecting this operation. And I just want to give him a shout out because when I first approached him, I was planning to buy a turbine aircraft, and I wanted to, because I still have a business that's around the 6 western states. And Jeff was the one who turned it around and said, I think we should rearrange this a little bit. And I really care about this operation, but if I ever lose a medical or something, just insurance issues or something like that happen where I can't continue to operate as a leader of the organization doing most of the flying, because anybody that knows Wright Brothers knows that for all this time, he's been the most common person to take you on a flight if you hired one, and he's been doing this for a long time. So he convinced me that there was an opportunity and a need to help the community. He kind of cast his vision for what needed to happen, and so I agreed to buy the company. And we also purchased another company out of Bellingham from that same gentleman that made the referral to Brian. It was Fractional Jets LLC. These are separate organizations with different missions. We're pulling them together to create something that I think will be more stable than traditional attempts at scheduled here. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. So let's go ahead. All right, so this is not a picture of just any jet. This is our first jet. This is, if you could see the tail number, I should have said that. The tail number is 983 Charlie Alpha, meaning 983 is the first three numbers of our zip code. It's our citizens. It's for us. It covers the whole county, and Citizen Air is the two letters. So 983 Citizen Air. It has already been doing demo flights, and I got to tell you, one of those flights my wife and I took for a little vacation over to Jackson Hole, and to be able to leave Port Angeles and be at our condo in Jackson Hole faster than we could have made it to TSA is a really nice thing. So, and so I am grateful for this opportunity, and you'll hear more about it. We are trying to get this. This will also be the jet that we get go through proving flights with the FAA, so that we can offer charter jets, not just fractional jets. I'll tell you more about that as we go along, but fractional jets are a critical place to start for a variety of reasons that really do affect our community, having to do with the stability of our jobs in this area, right? We have a very seasonal type of workforce because of the kind of tourism that we support, and we had to find a solution that would be year-round. So I'll tell you more about that as we go along. Next. So we are headquartered at Port Angeles Airport. We uh, we are in the process of hiring pilots and training them in aircraft they haven't flown before. We've gotten our chief pilot and our director of ops, which are Henny Jungman and Jeff Well. They've both been type rated in that jet so that they can train the next pilots. And that's really mostly Henny's job to train them, and then Jeff's job is to manage dispatch and the understanding of the area and making sure that everybody's coordinated and flying safely. Investing in long-term infrastructure is a commitment we have, so we are working closely with the port to plan more hangars and continued development of the operations here, growing different capabilities, greater emphasis on maintenance and flight training and things like that. So we're definitely focused on making a difference, not only in aviation, but creating durable jobs here too. Next. We've had a little fun with doing some stuff. We collaborated with the folks over at Squim Airport, Andy Soleil, who invited us to come over and tell us, introduce Citizen Air to the community in Squim. We had some fun. You see that little one on the left there, that's my plane, and that's my grandson. So he was at the airfair. This is somebody else's little man in the plane on the right, and we were offering photo shoots for parents that wanted to let their children get up inside the airplanes. It's never too early to inspire them. We also recently sponsored the Banff International Mountain Film Festival put on by the well, their association or their nonprofit. And we brought them, or we decided to sponsor them because this was the first time they were coming out to the peninsula, and we wanted to embrace anything related to adventure and the human story of like everything it takes to overcome a problem. It just seemed to fit us and like what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to be very plugged in. I got to say, a big shout out to Field Hall, Steve Ginsberg, and the whole team there. They've been incredibly supportive of this effort as well. So thank you. Next slide. All right, so this is just the beginning, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I'm sure we'll have questions about it. So SoundPass, this is a strategy to start to roll out new capability that will, again, going back to the idea of Citizen Air, it will give us an opportunity as a community to participate in a membership model. Now, there's a reason for that. Scheduled service, I'm going to just make a distinction for you. Scheduled service is the kind of service you can go online, you can look it up on the internet, and you can pick a flight and a seat. That is something called commuter authority, and that is a step above what I'm about to tell you here. I know that's what everybody wants, but there's bad math for scheduled service as it relates to trying to launch something here. That's why you haven't had it for 12 years. That's why the last carrier really had to pull out. The math doesn't work generally. It works if we get a lot of subsidy, but it can't be a short subsidy. It has to be a continuous subsidy, and that has not been available to Colleen, or Port Angeles in general. So we are focused on doing something that would be a little more of a collaborative offer. This is where we're going to take smaller planes like a Cirrus Piston, Cirrus Jet. I like the Cirrus for a couple of key reasons. These are small planes though. But what it also means is we take smaller risks testing new opportunities like this. So rather than having a larger plane that now the DOT would say we have to, if one person buys a ticket under commuter authority rules, if even one person buys a ticket, we're obligated to make that flight. Even if it comes back empty, we had to make it one way for one person and an empty return if that was how it turned out. Now, we don't think that's how it will always turn out. But the minute we start flying anything that hits the commuter authority limit, the current commuter authority limit for 9 seats, that's a small airplane. But as soon as we start introducing that, we will have to maintain about 7 to 8 people per flight to make that make sense. And that isn't what we see happening in other rural communities. So we just have to be very careful because it's a big obligation once you start, and that's part of what wrecks the durability. So rather than jump right into commuter authority, we are starting with SoundPass. SoundPass will be a membership model. We're going to do something kind of unique for Port Angeles that we won't do for other cities, just in a way of supporting our local community who's supported us. But more on that as we go. But what this is going to allow people to do is for about the price of a scheduled seat, they could get a seat with someone who is chartering one of these aircraft. We're going to create a charter model and an app for us that allows people to call up or just go to their app and book a flight. So if I said, hey, next Tuesday at 10 a.m., I need a flight to SeaTac. You can do that now, by the way. You can charter an aircraft now, but you pay for the whole aircraft. It's like hiring a taxi. If you get a taxi and you only use one seat, you're still paying for the taxi. But you've noticed, like with Uber, they have something called carpool, and it lowers your price. This is a very similar idea. This is a membership model driven on an app, not on the internet. And it will be, we can offer the membership on the app, but it follows the rules of jet cards. Not that any of you are sitting here thinking, when are we going to have a jet card program? But what you're probably asking is, when can I get around Puget Sound in a way that's less expensive and more attainable? So we're going to buy these types of aircraft to give us a few more seats. We're starting with the Cirrus SR-22, the one on the bottom there, and it's also the safest and most capable airplane in its class. It has a parachute for the whole aircraft. It has all the safety features you could hope for. It's new and modern and has great avionics, and it's very quick. It takes me about 18 minutes to get from Squim to Boeing Field. We can talk more about it. I'm sure the question is going to be, why not directly to SeaTac? And we do that sometimes, but I'll explain when we get to Q&A. I'm sure it'll come up. But this allows one other key feature of the Cirruses. They are what the FAA calls FICI approved. FICI is an acronym. They do a lot of those, and it stands for Flight into Known Icing. So 135 charter section 135 of the FAA, that's a charter certification. That's an air carrier certification, just like the one that you get from the airlines, but it's a different category. So you, instead of buying a seat for the day, you buy an aircraft for that trip, right? You're paying for the aircraft for that trip. And in this case, we're going to talk about a pooled model that will have year-round capability. That FICI capability that I just told you about, that is the one that allows us to fly all seasons. Now, let's just be clear, that means a lot less cancellations for weather, especially in the winter. But it doesn't mean no cancellations for weather, because even the big airlines have to do that when weather is terrible. So there's certain conditions you just can't take off in, and you can't land in. But there's far less of those issues with an aircraft built for flight into known icing. So these are certified for that purpose. I've been flying them up here, and I generally never have to think about winter weather when I fly. So just wanted to let you know that's a year-round strategy. Next. While she's pulling that up, I want to mention that here you see some of the timelines. Like, instead of a 2 to 4 hour drive, you're talking about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on where you're going. And that could actually include, uh, like, for example, I mentioned the Cirrus gets me to Seattle in about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. 45 would be actually even in one of the Cessnas. And we will continue to run the Cessnas as part of that fleet, so we have enough coverage so that when people charter, you can either go we'll call it maybe sport class, which would be a Cirrus, or a utility class, which is a fully certified aircraft, and yet doesn't have FICI and some of those things you might be hoping for. But if the weather's good, we can still do those trips all the time. So we're already doing those trips. We just nothing's been built to do automatic um, pooling of those seats. So I'm going to mention real quick, the Sound Pass is going to focus on areas inside Puget Sound, right? We're not trying to conquer everything at once. What we want to make sure of is that you have mobility around Puget Sound into Victoria and down to Portland and up to the Cascades, right? Like that. Now the Cirruses, they can easily go farther than that, but we're just focused on this piece. Doesn't mean you can't call up and ask for something to take you to Spokane or to Idaho or whatever. It just means this is what we're going to focus our efforts on to make sure we get it right. The idea here is that with everybody being pretty close to home, pooling has the potential to work pretty well. And if we make mistakes, there'll be small mistakes, and we can learn as we go. We can make adjustments to price. We can make adjustments to the app. So that's what we're gonna launch and learn together. So I'll come back to this. I mean, I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions about this once we finish up, but that's the focus of this effort. Okay, getting you to the islands if you want to get there, getting you to Bellingham, Everett, Seattle, Portland, and anywhere in between. These are not just one-way flights either. These are capable of being in Seattle, and we will advertise in Seattle. So somebody who is interested in going to the islands can pick up that dead leg that would usually just be an expense. So now as long as we handle that right and we focus on the Puget Sound region, we think we can make a bit of a dent and learn as we go. All right, next.
Trying.
I understand. Well,
It is not
we'll
wanting
just
to
call that a
move.
coffee break.
There we go.
All right. So, Port Angeles is uniquely located in what I would call especially for fractional jets, it is located in a very short relocation or reposition flight. So, whether your airplane is sitting in Everett and you've got to move it to Boeing to pick up a passenger, or it's sitting in Port Angeles and you got to move it to Boeing, those take almost exactly the same amount of time. These are not big differences. So, what's unique though is Port Angeles sits out here with a lot less traffic. We have precision approaches available to so that any type of jet that can land on our runway can land here. And by the way, we get 737s landing here and large private jets. So we've seen a big uptick in that. And we have a customs service here, and they're even considering with the port about moving their main office up to the airport, especially as this grows. So there's they have access to all the major Puget Sound airports, even if you're flying in a small plane. And Fairchild is also located in an opportunity zone that was declared by the governor a few years back, or a number of years back, and it encourages folks who can make an investment in communities. It targets the communities that the governor wanted to make sure we would invest in. And so that worked out really well, and that's how we've structured this. So next. So the strategy is to grow the jet and jet prop aircraft community. We will also fractionalize the cirruses. That's the other piece because that will work hand in hand with both fractional for the local type of buyer as well as the sound pass for charter. But the jet prop and jet category is a really important one, not because everybody here wants to use them, or whether you want to use them or not, they can be pretty pricey, right? But not terrible if you're fractionalizing or just using it for one event. But they are going to serve a certain niche here, but more importantly, they're going to serve a niche throughout Puget Sound. Seattle, Bellingham, Gig Harbor, all of these places have people who would like to be flying jets. They may not be able to own or purchase one that is a complete purchase. They might want to buy part of one. So a fractional strategy allows people to buy as little as 1/16th of an aircraft, according to the FAA. And that 1/16th makes it a lot easier for somebody to step into it if it's their first attempt to have their own jet. And for many people, even the people that own big jets, they often buy a fractional interest so that they have a surplus lift category. Here's why that matters to Port Angeles because these jets have to be serviced and maintained and cared for and sit in hangars somewhere. And hangar space throughout Puget Sound is incredibly expensive, and even if you can afford them, you can't get them. There's long waiting lists in most locations throughout Puget Sound. So with Port Angeles and Citizen Air working hand in hand, the port is already building 4 more hangars right now that hold jets. And Jeff had already built 4, Jeff Well, so we are in using 2 of those right now to expand maintenance services and to house the first jet. So our goal is to add 8 to 10 jets a year on our certificate. Excuse me, 8 to 10 jets over the next 2 years onto our certificate. Now, those will be distributed throughout the area. So, for example, somebody could already have a jet in Seattle that they're ready to sell, but they don't really want to have the income tax recapture from the deduction that they took as they purchased that airplane. So they may put it on certificate with us so that we can help them make money for it so they can go buy the one that they now want to buy, right? So there's certain incentives that everybody around Puget Sound have to go buy their next piece of equipment, but they may not want to pay the tax consequence of selling the current one. So that we will give them an opportunity to put it on our certificate and fractionalize it to smaller owners, either by lease or by sale. More than you probably want to know, but I'm just giving you that background so you understand this particular goal is going to benefit us because since those airplanes, for the most part, or at least a majority of them, will live inside of Port Angeles at night and go do their work during the days, what it will bring to us is the jobs. We want the jobs to be here. And we want to have some of our young people have the opportunity to come get their flight training going and work their way through jobs that have a clear step-by-step process to end up in a professional career if they want to stay here. I mean, these are tall orders. They're ambitious. We're not 100% sure. It's not going to do that for everybody, but if it does it for somebody, if it does it for a few more, we've already grown to about 20 jobs at this particular role because there's certain things we have to put in place in order to offer these offers in the community. So just like having Henny here, Henny was working out of Kodiak and Minnesota. He has a steep background as a jet pilot in the military and a test pilot, and also when he got out was doing a fair amount of charter in Alaska, and then also was working in Minnesota in the forestry as a chief pilot there. So you're talking about very qualified people that we had to get to move here, right? Same thing with Brian Hammer. He hasn't moved here, but he has a place to stay here, and he comes here 3 weeks out of the month. Sometimes I think it's more than that. It might be 3 months out of the summer. And so, he's paying the price to help us build it, and then he's helping to promote local people on the ground to fill in when he can't be here. And I just love seeing that. And we have people that have lived here a long time that are finding career paths that we're excited about. So
Great.
we are also excited that the port has a plan, and sometimes at some point in the future, a master plan for FBO and hangar expansion. But again, part of that is we have to demonstrate that we as a community are going to support an effort to do this together. It's part of the reason organizations like Kenmore had to leave when they did 12 years ago is they couldn't hit uh, the utility level of filling all the seats to make the money make sense. So eventually you start losing money, and all of these businesses have to make some kind of profit. Even, I mean, otherwise it's not worth the risk, right? They have to make something. And they kept trying and it just didn't work, so they finally pulled out. And that's why, even though the port has been working ambitiously to invite other carriers in here, as soon as they did the math, and as soon as I did the math, I realized it just doesn't make sense. It's a losing proposition. But here's what fractional does for us. It gives us year-round pilots because the planes are owned for 5 years at a time and then we sell them, or leased for 5 years at a time and then we release them. So if the pilots and the maintenance people can stay located here in Port Angeles and they can keep their jobs year round, then you all have a better chance at having a steady pooled model or scheduled model to rely on. So, in order to make little trips at a reasonable cost to Seattle something you can have in a durable way, we have to have durable jobs for our people that run those things. And scheduled by itself is not a good predictor of durable jobs in this environment. Yeah, thank you, David. And not they're not all durable jobs. If you have to lay people off in the winter, that's not good. And you can't keep your pilots if they think that's what's coming, right? So they'll go off and join the airlines because they can, and we want to have reasons for them to see their career here. So that's a little longer than I expected to spend on that, but I just wanted to make sure we covered all those points. Go ahead.
Yep.
All right. So obviously, it's critical. I live here. My wife and I live here. We don't want to have to move. We love it here and we love the people. We are focused on safety, service, and sustainability. We want to make sure that this place stays beautiful, that we have a great experience together, that we keep things safe beyond all things. So in fact, we're even launching what the FAA is going to require for small commuters like this. We're launching our SMS program, which is a safety management program. It's required of small operators come 27, but we are launching it already just because we want to be ahead of the curve on that. Safety is the only thing when you fly. You don't want to have to reevaluate it every time. So creating long-term economic impact right here at home. We want the jobs to stay. We want the aviation business to stay. I committed to Colleen and the rest of the members of the port, of the board of the port, that as soon as we got this stood up and operational, that I would set up a buy-sell agreement that would help make sure this stays in the community when I get ready to move on. So, grounded in teamwork and community values, we want to embrace the community. We want to be embraced by the community. We want to listen to to what you care about and do the best we can to address it. If we can't always say yes, we will try to give you a clear answer as to why. So that's sort of philosophically how I run business, and I think it applies no matter what the business is. So, next. All right. So I hope you'll join our mailing list at flycitizenair.com. And we will also be posting for you at LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and x.com. Please, write those down or take a picture and let us know you're interested in being part of this collective solution. Again, what will make this first phase work when we get to it will be this idea of SoundPass, which is a pooled model. That means if I'm getting ready to go on Tuesday, I can pick a flight, but then there's going to be a button that lets me say, yes, you can sell these other 2 seats to somebody else. And anybody that's a member would then receive a communication alert that there's a flight going on Tuesday.
Offering up cheese
And oh,
scramble and toast again.
I don't know who. Oh, is that that's not a question. That's somebody talking on the phone. Got it. So the idea being is that we should not be flying airplanes from here to Seattle or other places that have empty seats. Let's make it possible to reduce the cost to the person who made the reservation by selling the seats that are in it. It's very similar to an Uber pooling model. This is a aircraft pooling model. And we'll give you a lot more detail on that as we go, and I'm sure it'll come up in the Q&A. So I think that's it for our slides at this point. And
Early this morning.
I'll let you
Because-
decide, Colleen, if we want to jump right into questions.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I know I have one to start
Okay.
off. So if I were to charter a flight to Boeing Field
Mhm.
and it was open up to SoundPass and 2 people were to join us, does my cost go down as well?
Yes.
Okay,
So the idea is that the flight will have a cost. And then when you book it, you'll also be given the opportunity, Colleen, since you'd be a member, you'd have the opportunity to cancel that flight if it didn't fill up. If you can't afford to fly with it by yourself, you book it for when you need it. But then the more notice you give, like if you book it 2 weeks ahead, there's a pretty good chance those other seats are going to fill. If you book it the day before, you may not be able to fill those seats, right? So we will then build the technology that allows us to tell every other member and to sort of curate members around some people just have to go to Bellingham. That's not Boeing. Boeing is more the highest. And when I say Boeing, you guys will come around to this CTAC question in a second. But somebody might have a specific need to get to Bellingham. So that one's not going to show up as often. So if we know people through a selection of priorities said, no, Bellingham is one of my top priorities, then that person would get an invitation before the rest of the community because we know they depend on being able to go there. So we're going to build those kinds of dependencies into the technology. And fortunately, we live in a world today where AI can help us do this. It's not simple to do. Jeff used to try to do this by actually just picking up the phone and calling a few people he knew that said they need a ride when it shows up, but that is not an efficient way. We've also been sending out some notice to people about empty legs, but empty legs are hard to understand because you're only going one direction. The question is, can I still get back? Right? Like how do I coordinate that? Empty seats or a robust opportunity where many flights are going a day, those empty seats will recur and maybe they won't be exactly at the time you wish they were. But honestly, I end up choosing airline tickets that aren't always exactly at the time I wish they were, but that's all that's available. And so this will be very similar, but it'll be more dynamic. And the other thing is, let's say, Colleen, you didn't ask this, but let's say you booked it, but then something changes in your calendar and you just can't go. You could still cancel, and then we would give the other people the opportunity to pick up your cost, or just we'd remarket your seat to the rest of the community. If it doesn't pick up, we'd give the people a day ahead of time notice that that they would be able to buy your seat. Now, we would have to have some place in there where we say, look, if you had it, if you booked it and you try to cancel it 2 hours ahead of time and other people are counting on it, you might still have to be billed for that, right? So we'll have to figure out what's the most flexible we can be for people. Let's be community minded. What's the most flexible we can be and still make sure we don't disappoint people that have counted on something that was offered, right? So as we work this through, we'll take a lot of feedback and we'll learn as we go. So we'll launch gently and carefully with 1 or 2 planes, and that will be one that's more like a Cirrus and one that's like one of the Cessnas. We might include maybe 3 or 4 of the Cessnas, depending on what the volume looks like. But we'll start with that Cirrus for all season, because we can fly a day like today. As long as we could take off, this overcast in winter would be a threat of icing, and just because the way that temperature works. And since it's a threat of icing, you never know where icing is, but since it's a threat, you'd have to take an aircraft. If you were going to file with a flight plan, which we have to do, you'd have to have de-icing on it. It would have to be FICI, flight into known icing. So we want to make sure that we at least have some mode of transportation that we can consistently deliver for people. So we'll continue to keep you posted as we add planes to the family.
Right. So Kelly, we've got some really good questions in the chat. Kai asks, if it seems you mentioned possible sound pass flights to Victoria, which
Yeah.
airport would you be flying to, and how far is that from downtown Victoria?
So downtown Victoria is about a 20 or 30-minute Uber ride, or you can get a rental car. But that is where we usually take people, is the Victoria Airport. There's no reason we can't go to other airports. We're going to decide as we go. And here's the thing. If we put a flight on SoundPass, if you're a member, you're going to get a discounted rate on the airplane anyway. We'll talk more about that as we get closer. But you'll have a certain discount just because you're a member, right? And that's an advantage. You could book a flight to Vancouver or somewhere else, but if nobody joins you on that, that's not like that's not what it was built for. But of course, if you want to charter it, you can. You'll still get charter advantage by being a member, so you'll have a little price benefit. But we're going to focus our efforts on making sure we fill the flights that are within a half-hour flight, right? Something that's relatively short. So most of these in a Cirrus are going to be about 20-minute flights, 20 to no more than 30. Since you didn't bring up the question about Boeing versus SeaTac, I just want to talk about that a little bit. What we have to deal with is, even the FAA had their airport team come out, the actual facilities, not just the operations side. And the facilities team came out. They brought the head of their department from Denver, because they were really concerned about what we were talking about building, and do we have to have access to SeaTac? And right now, it's their legal obligation to allow us to land there if there's a slot. But almost always, the slots are predetermined, and they are being monitored for the because there's a distance and a time between every flight. So you'll see that sometimes at night. You'll see a long stack of airplanes coming in and landing one after another, and they're spread apart by an equal distance. Those slots are now getting in such high demand that they were predicting that within 36 months, we will see that every available slot for SeaTac is already predetermined. So the ability to land there will be unreliable, but possible. But I want to talk to you about the idea that first, we will work with SeaTac and do the best we can to earn that, especially if we decide to go to commuter authority. But interesting enough, currently, if you were to land in SeaTac and go to the signature private aviation side and get a car, you're going to drive around the whole airport to go back in on the other side and go through TSA. And that'll take you about 10 to 15 minutes. If you land in Boeing and you get an Uber, that'll just go directly over to SeaTac, and that'll take you about 10 to 15 minutes. So the reality of your experience won't be much different no matter which of those. In fact, you could even land at Renton, and sometimes that's even faster. The advantage we have with SoundPass is we'll have flexibility to get you someplace over there where, usually it's Boeing, almost always. But even Boeing is starting to get to a point where they are um, having to sort of pace the landings, especially during certain busy periods. So,
Great.
all right,
All right.
next.
So next question, we've got quite a few in here. How much will rideshare seats cost, or what might be the price range to Seattle, and what impact will Citizen Air's growth have on the port attracting scheduled commercial passenger service?
So I'll answer the last one second, or first, I mean. Attracting scheduled service is actually something that we're not working to attract, we're working to introduce. We plan to bring you scheduled service. Someday it's on the horizon. We won't lose focus of it. But before we can do it, the math and the demand have to make sense. So
And be known.
it has to be known, and we have to be able to predict what's going to happen so it can be a durable solution, right? You don't want to go through it again where somebody starts something and has to stop, or gives it to you for 5 years and then it has to stop for 10. That is not a great solution. We need to have the jobs here year round. We need to have airplanes that can fly year round, and we can't deal with volatile demand. It has to be filling those airplanes. So we're starting out with pooling for the reason that we can measure that, we can monitor, and we can move with that a little more frequently. We can adjust and add more flights and things like that. With charter, you can pick the exact time you want to leave. You might want to leave a little earlier because there might be other people that join. Um, we want to maximize flexibility, but eventually we will try to introduce. We're already looking at airplanes for it, but before we want to introduce a scheduled service, we just want to make sure that we can feel good about its durability. So we don't have to attract somebody. We are going to do that for you if we can make the math make sense, and we're going to try very hard. Going back to the first one, what we're trying to do, I think the last time Kenmore was here 12 years ago, they were in the $150 range to get over. We're trying to get this down to where we're using small enough planes that your price to go from here to anywhere in Puget Sound is someplace near that. So whether it's 155 or it's 160 or it's 140 or maybe it's to the islands and it's 100, it's 75, I don't know. We're watching, and this will come down to the cost of operation of a smaller aircraft. So there'll be less seats, but it'll be a smaller aircraft. So it'll be the closest approximation to what the price would be if you were going on a scheduled service. In the scheduled service, you have to follow the schedule it's posted at. With charter, if you want a particular time to go, you could book the flight. We could then advertise it to the community to fill the seats. And if those seats fill, you paid the same, pretty close to the same thing as if you had gone on a scheduled flight, but you got your exact schedule. If they don't fill, you have a choice to make whether or not you want to continue to take that flight at the full price of that airplane for that day. I use them every day. I think it changes your life when you can make it that easy over there, and you can do it on your schedule. The more time that you plan ahead, the more time we have to give you a discounted seat by you book it, and then other people take it. But let me give you some other flexibilities just to help you understand how well we're thinking through it. You may choose that in 2 weeks from now on a Tuesday morning, you want to leave at 8 in the morning. And someone else says, well, yeah, we want to leave on Tuesday morning, but we want to leave at 10. So we have two separate charters booked. But let's say neither of them are full. We'll reach back out and through that same kind of app to see if maybe it makes sense to merge those two into one flight at a shared time that works for the group, so that everybody gets a better price, right? People can still say no, but it's about trying to make the effort to accommodate the community with the most affordable that we can do. We're watching the lowest operational cost we've found in the area is up in Kenai Aviation. We're close friends with them. We're paying attention to what they're doing. They have been running their direct operating costs for it mean that their tickets right now for an almost identical flight profile, they're like within 2 miles of our flight profile between here and Boeing, and their flights are running 155 when they are full. If they start to see that change or it's down to a smaller number, they're having to raise those up to about 165. So that's about where we are today. That's about where it was 12 years ago. Um, so I think, that's really dependent on fuel and equipment maintenance. So as those things change, we may see variation, but what we will be is transparent with you.
Mhm. Great. Matt Hewish says, amazing model and opportunity for the peninsula. What are the parking costs of Fairchild while out of town? I love this question.
That's a great question. I might pass that back to you, Colleen. So-
Well, the commission is, because we really want to see this happen, we have waived parking fees. So, when you consider the cost of driving to SeaTac and what you have to pay to park, and the cost of the flight may be more, but we have waived any parking fees. So you'll be saving on the trip, and you'll be saving on parking fees.
And I'll go a step further there too, because the port has, like I said, been very supportive. And one of the things they've done is for any of the flights that we're taking to support you with what we're calling Sound Pass, or if your children are taking flight lessons, they're allowing us to pull those flights out of the landing fee requirement that the rest of the public has to pay. So every little fee we can reduce helps to keep it manageable and attainable, and they have been amazing partners in helping us do this. So
Great. Glad to hear. Uh, do you foresee a seaplane option in Citizens Air's future?
if I want to continue to have a happy wife someday, yes, she really wants me to have that. Um, uh, it isn't our first priority. Here's how it could happen faster than we would plan. If somebody had a seaplane that they'd like to put on the certificate to do shared fractionalization. So we have this tool with this fractional tool. Anyone who owns an airplane could agree to let us take over 1/16 of that airplane and manage that airplane for them, help them with hangar space, things like that. So we have some tools to offer if somebody already has one and they wouldn't mind letting us use 50 hours or 100 hours a year of that aircraft use. That's a easy way for that to happen, and we will stay alert for those opportunities. But at the for the sake of Sound Pass, they are more expensive to fly and they are harder to fill because you can't. They're not always. If they're pure seaplanes, you don't use regular runways. You use just water. That I think what you're asking is, if maybe it could do both, so they would be called an amphibious aircraft. Most of the amphibious aircraft that work for this kind of a model are turbine or jet engines with a prop, and that drives up some cost. And so even when you see people like local providers do it if the plane is all the way full, the price can be somewhat similar. That's because they don't pay a federal excise tax for landing on the water, and also because they have their planes paid off. We have to assume cost of capital going into this because we're buying these planes, right? So we just have to make sure. I promise you, what's crazy about this mission is if it goes well, it doesn't make, I mean, even when an air business, a commuter authority is working, the investor capital is getting the best profit you can model for is hoping that you get about a bond rate of return. That's a lot of risk to take for something that's a bond rate of return. So this has got to be a passion project that we all embrace, and that the fractional jet business is a business built to be naturally profitable. The net jets and flex jets, you've heard about those. Those are models that are profitable. We are doing something with those same licenses, but we're taking out some of the guarantees those make. We're not guaranteeing that somebody can have their jet in 2 hours anywhere they live. That's not going to be our size capacity. That's a unique offer because Warren Buffett has a lot of jets and we're not Warren Buffett. So we're going to do the best we can do for Port Angeles, and we'll make a constrained offer, and we'll grow steady and slowly and carefully. Brian has so many relationships in this space, having come from the fractional market where he knows it very well, and his relationships are deep. And what's really a big advantage to us is we may pick up an airplane we were just negotiating one in Austin, Texas. Now, why does that matter? Because they need a certificate. And most of the fractional providers are very clearly on their business plan, they're only going to do one kind of thing. We need to be a little scrappier. So we're letting the brokerage community have an opportunity to use a fractional tool that we have a certain set of responsibilities for, and we know how to execute on those. And they have some freedoms on their side on how to help those accommodate their clients. Why does that matter? It brings revenue to stabilize our model. And that's the only reason we would do it. So.
Great. All right, the next question is from Pat McCauley. She says she worked on Kenmar marketing, and one of their big issues was that they did not fly after 7 p.m. Anyone who flies back and forth from the East Coast knows those flights don't return until 8 p.m. or so. At 10 p.m., the Alaska terminal is packed and there's no way back from Seattle. How flexible will you be on the length of day?
To this moment, we are very flexible. I come in often late in the afternoon or evening, and I leave at dark 30 half the time. So I am always on a plane in the dark, and we don't have any problem with that. Part of the reason that they had that problem is they are flying under 135 rules for seaplanes. And so that you have to be able to see the water, you have to be able to, your pilots are not filing IFR, they're filing VFR, visual flight rules, rather than instrument flight rules. We will be flying all of these we won't always fly instrument, but all of our planes that are flying you for Sound Pass will be capable, or we will offer capable aircraft for instrument flight rules. Instrument flight rules and FICI are both necessary to file on a day like today.
She also mentions Anchorage, and could you include Anchorage as a destination on your flight
So
map?
Anchorage is a pretty good size hop. You're probably better off for this purpose flying to Seattle and taking Alaska Air. Now we can charter to Anchorage. The question would be, would your plane fill up, and would that even make it reasonably priced? It probably won't make it reasonably priced, even if it filled up. Not compared to an airline. The airline's got a couple hundred seats to sell. The jet will have 5 to sell, right? So you're just going to be spreading it over a smaller number of people. This first jet.
Mm-hmm. Kai Alberg asks, when do you expect Sound Pass to be rolled out, and will there be a membership fee? And if so, how much?
Yeah, we are talking about a membership fee that would be under $100 a month, and a good portion of it would apply to your actual ticket account so that you can use that money. But the stability of the payments give the early ability for pilots to stay full time, for mechanics to stay full time, even if people aren't flying those days. We know that some of you will fly more in the summer than you will in the winter. We don't want that to be something we have to wait for. So either we wait until we think we're past the winter, or we introduce it in the winter. Either way, the FAA will not let us do this on a web located basis where we put it on the web and you hire it that way. That's called scheduled, and you have to go through Department of Transportation and FAA to be a scheduled operator. This will be a charter operation, so we can launch it early, and then the membership is going to be a design that just makes sure that that's why you are able to get these deals. The FAA has room in that. That's what a jet card does. It's a membership model. So this is going to be the least expensive model we've seen anywhere in this space. And it's whether it's $100 or it's $50, the idea is that a small amount goes to stabilize the staff that it takes to fly all of you, and the rest of it can be credited as flight credits. So, but it gives a steadiness to it then that allows it to live in the winter when you wouldn't have enough demand to do it.
Okay, great. We got 6 questions left and 4 minutes. So, have you considered Tofino for those of us who love to fly
Oh
there
my
versus
gosh.
drive?
Going back to that happy wife conversation, that's one of our favorite destinations. Chances are, if there's a plane going to Tofino, we will be the other passengers. So,
Okay,
uh,
very good.
always call us and ask if it makes sense. It may not be a sound pass flight. It might just be a regular charter flight, but it might not feel that much different to you because if you're a member, we're going to give you a member rate rather than a
Mhm.
public rate.
Okay, of these smaller planes, what are the luggage limitations?
Now that's a great question. So really one, does it fit in the airplane? So you probably don't want to take your great big 50-pound bags. You want to probably be thinking something 25 pounds max. And that depends on, just like any other aircraft, all aircraft have a weight and balance limitation. So what weight and balance will do to you is if you have an airplane that is stuffed with people and bags, you will be required to take less fuel, which is another reason we're only doing short flights. We understand that these will be commuters that will probably jump in on an airplane, that these I have used my Cirrus tons for this kind of travel. I've put 50-pound bags in there. It's just that they don't fit all that easily, and you're going to be a lot better off planning to travel light, but you don't have to travel that light. There's plenty of room to get them in there. The question is if, do we have to go very far? So now, if you're planning to have us take you someplace like Spokane, we just have to make sure we're managing weight and balance. But that's what our dispatch team does. They make sure they won't release a flight that's overweight. So you can ask the question, and depending on the weight of the passengers and the luggage, then we will determine how much fuel we can carry. Anything in the Puget Sound area is an hour of fuel, and that's not so bad.
What size party fully books each of the two planes?
So if you are using a Cirrus, you'll have a professional pilot. These, by the way, the pilots can't just be regular pilots. They have to be 135 qualified pilots. So they have check rides every 6 months with the FAA certified person who does those check rides. They have to be qualified as air carrier pilots. But going back to this question, as far as how many seats, on average, a Cirrus has one seat in front and three seat belts in the back. I say that because you can put three people in the back, but if you're going to put three people in the back seat, you probably want to be friends or family because you're going to be touching each other in the back of one of these. But then again, you can decide that. It's most comfortable is three passengers and a pilot. Pretty small, but the economics work for what we're trying to do here. And this is you're gonna be friends with you're gonna have new friends. Let's say that if you make it work. So you know what? If you turn out to be in a flight with somebody that's not your best friend, it's only a 20 to 30-minute flight.
Yeah.
So
And so I missed, when did you say SoundPass would be rolling out?
good question. So we are buying the first aircraft next week. We have to get it through conformity, and we have to change the charter. And currently, the FAA is one of those great organizations that is suffering from a closure. So we don't know what to expect exactly. They're getting a backlog of work. So can I just say that we would like to launch this winter, and we'll test and learn, but I don't want to put hard dates on it while we're sitting when we have a dependency on the FAA approval of a new training model, a new training manual that just updates training for cold weather operations, new check rides. So we're buying the airplane now. We will start check rides immediately and training programs immediately. Those will take a couple of months to get through. So if we could say the beginning of 26, sometime in that first quarter, I think that would be safe. We'll get it. We'll keep you posted as we get closer, and I'm sure that there will be little yahoos coming out on our web and our emails and updates on Facebook and others when key things happen, like the pilots are now certified and the training manual is approved and things like that. So as it's coming, we want you to know about it. And then we will open up membership for it once we feel like we can sustain it. We still got to go build the app as well.
Got it. Okay, well, it's 9:01 and great presentation, lots of information. We really appreciate all you're doing, your team, and your commitment to our community. Thanks so much, Kelly. We're lucky to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to call it a morning, and